The chamber floated in the darkness between stars. Inside, representatives from 43 different species sat in a circular arrangement, each one more alien than the last. Some breathed methane, others existed as clouds of electrically charged particles. They had gathered here because of one problem that united them all: humanity. Sung stood before the assembly, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. His species, were known throughout 3 spiral arms as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. He had personally destroyed an entire pirate armada when he was barely into his adult years. Now, at the peak of his strength, he had volunteered for this mission. "They ignore our messages," one council member hissed through a translation device. "They expand into restricted zones. They claim worlds that were marked as protected." "How long have they been in space?" another asked. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber. Numbers scrolled across it in multiple languages. Hayone, the strategist, stepped forward to explain. Her species had conquered half a galaxy through pure tactical brilliance. She had won 47 consecutive campaigns without losing a single battle. 127 years, she said, her voice calm and measured. They developed faster-than-light travel only a century ago. In that time, they have claimed 14 star systems. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Most species took thousands of years to claim that many systems. Some never claimed more than their home world. "They were told the galaxy was full," Hayone continued. "They were told to stop expanding. They were told to wait for council approval before settling new worlds." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They ignored every warning." Sung uncrossed his arms and stepped forward. "I propose we send a delegation, the strongest warriors from our civilizations. We will go to their home world and deliver an ultimatum: submit to council authority or face elimination." "You believe force is necessary?" an elder council member asked. "I believe a show of force will make them understand reality," Sung replied. "We have studied them. They are physically weak. Their technology is inferior to ours. They have no psychic abilities, no natural armor, no enhanced senses. They are children playing in a galaxy of giants." Hayone activated another display. Images of humans appeared, pale and fragile-looking creatures with soft skin and vulnerable bodies. "Our intelligence confirms this assessment. They require special suits to survive in environments that many of us find comfortable. They have of less than a century without technological enhancement. They are unremarkable." "Then why have they expanded so quickly?" someone asked. Hayone hesitated for just a moment. "They reproduce quickly. They adapt their technology rapidly, and they seem to have no fear of the unknown. But these traits will not save them from us." The council voted. It was unanimous. A delegation would be assembled from the greatest warriors in known space. 7 champions, each representing a different type of power. They would travel to Earth and make humanity understand its place in the galactic order. Over the next 3 days, the champions gathered. Dong arrived first, his crystalline body reflecting light in strange patterns. His species could survive in the vacuum of space without protection. He could breathe any atmosphere or no atmosphere at all. He had once walked on the surface of a star to retrieve a sacred artifact. Wu came next, her form shifting and indistinct. She was a telepath, capable of reading and influencing minds across vast distances. Her species, had ended wars with thoughts alone. She was considered the most persuasive being alive. Sung Ho arrived with his collection of ancient weapons. His people valued honor above all else. He had fought 10,000 duels and never lost. Not once. He moved with a grace that seemed impossible for his large frame. Na appeared to simply materialize in the chamber, though she had actually been there for several minutes, invisible. She could manipulate reality itself at the molecular level. Her species had transcended physical limitations through pure force of will. One was older than any three civilizations combined. He had witnessed the birth and death of stars. He had seen empires rise and fall. He existed partially outside of normal time, immune to most forms of attack. Jin was the strangest of all. She spoke for trillions of individuals linked together in a quantum network. When she thought, trillions thought with her. When she acted, trillions acted through her. Together with Sung and Haewon, they represented the absolute peak of galactic power. If this delegation could not make humanity submit, nothing could. They boarded a ship that was itself a masterpiece of technology. It could cross the galaxy in days. Its weapons could destroy planets. Its shields could withstand the blast of a supernova. The seven champions stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. "How long will this take?" Sung-ho asked. "One day to reach their system," Haewon answered. "Perhaps another day to make them understand. They will see us and know they cannot win." Sung activated the ship's engines. "Then let us not waste time. Humanity will learn today that the galaxy has rules. They will learn their place." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the council chambers behind. None of them noticed the quiet confidence in Haewon's voice had a slight tremor of doubt. She had found something in the human databases that troubled her. Humans had a word they used often in their entertainment and their histories: underdog. It meant someone who was expected to lose but won anyway. Humans seemed to like that word very much. The ship raced toward the Sol system, carrying the strongest warriors the galaxy had ever assembled. They expected an easy victory, a simple demonstration of power, and a quick return home. They had no idea what waited for them. The red planet grew larger as their ship approached the Sol system. Mars. The humans had terraformed parts of it, building cities under protective domes. Dong studied the structures with mild interest. They were primitive compared to what his people could build. "Should we proceed directly to Earth?" Sung asked. "No," Haewon said, pointing at a signal on her display. "We are being hailed from Mars." A human voice came through the ship's communication system, speaking in clear galactic standard language. "Greetings, visitors. We've been expecting you. Would you like to land at Olympus Mons Station? We have facilities prepared for your arrival." Wu frowned. She had been probing ahead with her telepathic senses, trying to read human emotions. "They are not afraid. I sense no fear at all." "Why would they fear us?" Sung-ho laughed. "They do not yet know what we are." "They should sense danger," Wu insisted. "Any species with basic survival instincts would feel threatened by our approach, but I sense only curiosity and something else: amusement." Sung made a dismissive gesture with one of his hands. "Perhaps they are simply ignorant. We will land and explain reality to them." The ship touched down on a landing platform built into the side of the massive Olympus Mons volcano. As the champions disembarked, they were met by a small group of humans, just 5 of them, wearing simple uniforms with no visible weapons. Dong was immediately insulted. "Where is your military? Where are your champions? We have come to speak with your leaders." One of the humans, a woman with gray hair, smiled pleasantly. "I'm Commander Park. I'll be your military liaison. Our leaders are being contacted now, but they're in different time zones, so it might take a few hours to arrange a meeting. In the meantime, please come inside. You must be tired from your journey." "We do not tire," Na said coldly, her form shimmering as she demonstrated her power by making a nearby rock float and reshape itself. "Oh, that's impressive," another human said, pulling out a small device and pointing it at Na. "Molecular manipulation. We've been working on similar tech. The physics are fascinating. How do you manage the energy requirements?" Na stared at the human, confused. This was not the reaction she expected. Commander Park led them into a large conference room. Tables were laden with food and drinks from various worlds. The humans had somehow acquired the correct sustenance for each species represented. "Please, help yourselves. I know the journey from the council chambers is about 8 days at maximum speed. You must have pushed your engines hard to get here in 6. Haywan's eyes narrowed. How do you know where we came from? Oh, we've been monitoring the council channels for years, Park said casually. Ever since you told us to stop expanding, we figured you'd send someone eventually. She poured herself a cup of coffee. We took the liberty of learning about each of you. Quite impressive resumes, I must say. Wu stepped forward, deciding to use her abilities. She reached out with her telepathic power, attempting to pressure the humans into submission. It was a technique that had worked on thousands of species. The mere touch of her consciousness should make them fall to their knees in terror. Nothing happened. The humans continued chatting among themselves, pointing at the champions and taking notes on their devices. Park looked at Wu with concern. Are you all right? You look strained. Your minds, Wu whispered. I cannot touch them. Oh, right, Park tapped her temple. Neural firewall implants. Everyone has them. Basic cybersecurity. You wouldn't believe how much spam telepathic advertising we had to deal with before we developed these. Gave everyone terrible headaches. She laughed. We assumed other species might have telepaths, so we made the firewall's standard issue about 60 years ago. Sung had heard enough. He slammed one of his massive fists on the table, cracking it. Enough of this. We have not come here for refreshments and small talk. We have come to deliver a message from the Galactic Council. Humanity must submit to Council authority. You will cease your expansion. You will ask permission before settling new worlds. You will follow galactic law. Commander Park nodded, still smiling. I understand. And what happens if we refuse? Then you will face the consequences, Sung growled. Do you understand who we are? I alone have destroyed entire fleets. Each of us represents the pinnacle of our civilizations. We are the strongest warriors in the known galaxy. That's wonderful, Park said genuinely. We'd love to learn more about your combat experience. What kind of wars have you fought? What were your most challenging battles? Sung Ho stepped forward, his hand on one of his ceremonial weapons. I have fought 10,000 duels across 100 worlds. I have never been defeated. 10,000. A young human male looked up from his note-taking. Over how long? 300 years. The humans exchanged glances. One of them did some quick calculations on his device. So that's about 33 duels per year. That's actually not that many. Our tournament fighters can do that in a single season. Sung Ho's face darkened with anger. Haywan decided to take a different approach. Perhaps you do not understand the scale of what you face. I have commanded fleets of 10,000 ships. I have orchestrated campaigns across entire sectors. I have never lost a battle. Park nodded thoughtfully. 47 campaigns, right? Over 200 years. She pulled up something on her own device. That's a good record, very impressive. She paused. Though I should mention, we had a war 70 years ago that lasted 6 years and involved over 400 major battles on 3 continents. Just one war, on one planet. You fought yourselves. One spoke for the first time, his ancient voice filled with disbelief. Oh yes, Park said. We fight ourselves quite a lot, it's kind of our thing. She smiled, but there was something in her eyes now, something that made even Sung pause. We've gotten pretty good at it. Dong tried to regain control of the conversation. We demand to speak with your strongest warrior. Bring forth your champion so we may demonstrate the futility of resistance. Park set down her coffee cup. Which one? What? Which warrior? We have a lot, let me check. She made a call on her device, speaking rapidly in a human language, then looked back up. On Mars right now, we have about 40,000 active military personnel. On Earth, about 4 billion in the reserves, not counting active duty. Which one would you like to meet? The number hit the champions like a physical blow. 4 billion, in reserve. Nuss' voice was barely a whisper. How many wars are you currently fighting? Commander Park counted on her fingers. Active shooting wars, None, actually. We've been at peace with ourselves for almost 12 years now. It's a new record. She smiled proudly. We're trying really hard. The champion stood in silence, processing this information. A species that had 4 billion soldiers in reserve during peacetime. A species that considered 12 years without war to be an achievement. Perhaps, Sung said slowly, we should discuss this further, with your leaders present. Of course, Park said cheerfully. They should be available in about 2 hours. In the meantime, can I ask you all something? She leaned forward, genuinely curious. What's the most difficult opponent you've ever faced? Each champion thought back to their greatest battles. Against pirates, against rival empires, against monstrous creatures from the dark between stars. None of them said what they were all thinking. They were beginning to suspect they were about to find out. 3 days had passed since their arrival on Mars. The champions had met with human leaders through video conferences. The conversations had been polite, diplomatic, and ultimately frustrating. The humans listened, asked questions, and made no commitments. They seemed to treat the Council's ultimatum as the opening position in a negotiation rather than a final demand. Sung had grown tired of talking. Enough words, he announced on the morning of the 4th day. We challenge humanity to demonstrate their strength. If your warriors are as capable as you claim, prove it. Commander Park, who had been their constant companion, looked delighted. Oh, you want a demonstration. What kind? We have lots of options. Individual combat, Sung Ho said immediately. Let your finest warrior face me in honorable single combat. When I defeat them, your people will understand. Park made a few calls. Within an hour, they were standing in a large training facility. Sung Ho stood in the center, his weapons laid out before him, performing his ceremonial preparation for battle. The other champions watched from a viewing area. A door opened and a woman walked in. She was old, perhaps 70 by human years. Her hair was completely white. She wore a simple training uniform and moved with a slight limp. This is your champion, Sung Ho asked, unable to hide his disappointment. This is Master Lee, Park said. She teaches self-defense classes at the community center now. She agreed to come out of retirement for this. I am retired military, Lee explained, bowing slightly to Sung Ho. I hope I remember enough to make this interesting for you. Sung Ho's honor would not allow him to refuse, even though this seemed like an insult. He returned the bow and took his stance. I will try not to hurt you severely, Elder. That's very kind, Lee said. The match lasted 8 seconds. Sung Ho found himself on the ground, his breath knocked from his lungs, 3 of his weapons scattered across the floor. He had not seen Lee move. One moment she was standing 3 meters away, the next she was somehow inside his guard, and then he was falling. Lee helped him up. Sorry, I'm rusty. It's been 15 years since I taught hand-to-hand at the academy. Did I use too much force? Sung Ho stared at her, then at the other champions. I did not see. Would you like to try again? Lee asked. I can slow down if that helps. The Martian gravity, Sung Ho said quickly. It is different from my home world. I was not prepared. Oh, of course, Park said. We can adjust the gravity in the arena if you'd like, or we could move to Earth, whatever makes you comfortable. But Sung Ho shook his head, his pride wounded. No, I need to meditate on what happened. Na decided to try next. She would show these humans something they could not counter with physical tricks. She stood in the center of the arena and began to manipulate reality itself. She made objects float, then disintegrate into their component atoms. She reshaped the very floor beneath her feet, turning metal into water, then into fire, then back into metal. The humans watched with intense interest, recording everything. When she finished, breathing hard from the effort, they applauded. Magnificent, one of the human scientists said. The energy readings are remarkable. You're basically using directed consciousness to manipulate quantum fields, right? I am changing reality with my will, Na said. annoyed by the clinical description. Right, yes, the scientist nodded. We've been trying to do that for decades, only achieved limited success so far, mostly with nanoscale manipulation. But we weaponized the principles about 30 years ago in our reality anchor bombs. They freeze quantum states in a localized area, preventing exactly this kind of manipulation. Nustared, you have weapons against this. Against reality warping, sure. We figured if we could ever do it, someone else probably could too, so we developed countermeasures just in case. The scientist smiled. That's pretty standard doctrine for us. For every new weapon, we immediately try to figure out how to defend against it or counter it. Hayone felt a cold sensation spreading through her body. It was not fear, not exactly, but it was close. Commander Park, she said carefully, could we observe some of your tactical training, your war games? Of course, Park seemed genuinely happy to share. We actually have a full-scale simulation running right now. It's part of our officer training program. You're welcome to observe. They were taken to a command center where three-dimensional holographic displays showed a simulated space battle. Two fleets were engaged in combat. Park explained that one side was being controlled by their advanced AI, using optimal tactical algorithms. The other side was controlled by human officers in training. The champions watched as the battle unfolded. The AI fleet had superior numbers and positioning. By all logical calculation, it should win. The humans won. But it was how they won that made Hayone's blood run cold. She watched as the human fleet deliberately sacrificed an entire carrier group to draw the AI forces out of position. They used medical ships, which should be protected under any civilized rules of war, to smuggle troops behind enemy lines. They faked a retreat, then faked a surrender, then used the moment when the AI ships moved in to accept the surrender to detonate pre-positioned mines. That was effective, Hayone said quietly. That was horrifying, one said. His ancient eyes had seen many terrible things, but this was different. You sacrificed thousands of your own people as a distraction. In the simulation, yes, Park said. We don't do that in real life anymore. Not unless we absolutely have to. Anymore? Jin asked, her quantum-linked consciousness recoiling. Park's expression became serious. We used to do worse. Much worse. We had a war about 80 years ago where both sides deliberately targeted civilian populations to break enemy morale, cities with millions of people. We learned a lot from that war. Terrible lessons, but we learned them. You attacked civilians, Dong was shocked. His species had strict codes about such things. We did, Park said quietly. And then we wrote very specific rules saying we wouldn't do it again. We call them the Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, the Tokyo Accords. We have lots of rules about what we're not allowed to do in war. But in your simulation, Hayone pointed out, your officers just violated many of those rules. Yes, Park agreed, because those are rules for fighting each other. We know those rules, we understand them. We agree to them because we share a common humanity. She looked at each of the champions in turn. But you're not us, and if you attack us, we're not sure which rules would apply. The room fell silent. Sung spoke, his voice lacking its usual confidence. What are you saying? I'm saying we really hope you don't attack us, Park said, because we're not sure what we'd become if we had to fight for our survival against an alien threat. We've spent the last century learning to be better, to be kinder, to hold ourselves back. She paused. But we remember how to stop holding back. We remember all of it. Sung Ho found his voice. You are trying to frighten us. No, Park said. I'm trying to be honest with you. You came here to show us our place, to make us submit. But we already know our place. We're the species that survived itself. We're the ones who climbed out of our own hell. She smiled, but it was sad. We're really hoping the galaxy can be our friends, because you really don't want to be our enemies. The champions looked at each other. They had come to demonstrate superiority. Instead, they were learning fear. Commander Park had suggested a tour of Earth. "If you're going to make decisions about humanity, you should understand us better," she had said. Sung had agreed, though his reasons were changing. This was no longer just about delivering an ultimatum. This was reconnaissance. They traveled to Earth in a human shuttle. The planet was beautiful from orbit, blue and white and green. As they descended, the champions saw cities that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, forests that had been carefully restored, oceans dotted with both natural islands and artificial platforms. Their first stop was a museum in a city called Geneva. Park led them through halls filled with artifacts from human history. Weapons, mostly. Swords and spears from ancient times. Guns and cannons from more recent centuries. And then, in a sealed section with warning signs, the weapons humanity had banned itself from using. One stopped in front of a display showing a small, innocent-looking device. The plaque beneath it read, "Cobalt-salted thermonuclear device. Theoretical yield, extinction level event, never deployed, banned 2031. You built weapons that could end all life on your planet." One had lived for thousands of years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, but this shook him. Why? "Because we were afraid," a young human guide explained. She could not have been more than 20 years old. "We were afraid of each other. So we built bigger and bigger weapons, hoping that would keep us safe. It nearly destroyed us." "But you stopped," Jin observed. "We stopped," the guide agreed. "We realized that the only way to survive was to stop trying to make sure we could kill each other efficiently." They moved to another section. Here, the displays showed biological weapons, diseases that had been engineered to be more deadly, more contagious. Nanomachines that could disassemble living tissue. All of them banned, all of them kept only as reminders. "You created plagues," Dong asked, "deliberately." "During the resource wars," Park said. 200 years ago, before we unified, we did terrible things to each other." Na studied a display showing casualty estimates. The numbers were incomprehensible. 3 billion dead in one war. "In a series of wars," Park corrected. "Over 50 years. It's why we eventually decided to form a world government. We had to stop, or there wouldn't be anyone left to rule." Haewon was taking careful notes, but her hands were shaking slightly. She understood military strategy. She understood calculated losses. But this was different. These were not wars of conquest or territory. These were wars of extinction, where both sides seemed willing to burn the world rather than lose. Their next stop was a memorial, a vast field covered with white stones, each one representing 1,000 soldiers who had died in various wars. The field seemed to stretch forever. "How many stones?" Sung asked quietly. 43,000, Park said. "These are just from the last 300 years. We have other memorials for earlier periods." Sung-ho walked among the stones, reading the inscriptions. Each one told a brief story. A battle, a campaign, a war. Most of them were conflicts he had never heard of because they were all internal to humanity. Humans fighting humans, over and over again. "Do you honor your warriors?" he asked. "We honor everyone who served," Park said. "Winner or loser, whether they believed in a just cause or not. Because most of them were just people trying to survive, trying to protect their families, trying to do what they thought was right." One knelt and touched one of the stones. His time sense allowed him to perceive echoes of the past. He felt the terror, the pain, the desperate courage of millions of young humans who had died in that particular war. "You were children," he whispered. "So many of you were just children." "Yes," Park said. "We used to send our children to die. We don't do that anymore either." They visited a school next. Human children of various ages were learning math, science, history. But they also learned something else. In one classroom, teenagers were debating ethics. In another, they were studying the mistakes of past wars. In a third, they were learning about alien civilizations, trying to understand other ways of thinking. One child, no more than 10 years old, raised her hand when she saw the aliens. The teacher allowed her to ask a question. "Are you here to invade us?" the child asked, her voice clear and unafraid. Sung was not sure how to answer. "Would that frighten you?" The child thought about it seriously. "Yes, but my grandparents survived a war when they were children. They taught me that being afraid doesn't mean giving up." Wu, who had been quiet for most of the tour, knelt down to the child's level. "What if we were much stronger than you? What if you could not win?" The child looked at her classmates, then back at Wu. "Then we'd make it really expensive for you, and we'd never stop trying. That's what the history books say we do." They left the school in silence. That evening, they visited what humans called a veteran's home. Old soldiers, men and women who had fought in long-ago wars, living out their final years in peace. The champions expected to find broken people, traumatized by their experiences. Instead, they found people who laughed, who told stories, who played games with each other and argued about politics and talked about their. They had seen the worst of humanity, but they had not been destroyed by it. One old man, his body marked with scars from ancient injuries, shared a meal with Sung. "You're one of those council champions, right? Come to make us behave." "That was the intent," Sung admitted. The old man chuckled. "Good luck with that. We're not very good at behaving, never have been." "You do not fear us?" "Son, I spent 3 years in a trench fighting other humans for a strip of land that nobody really wanted. I saw my friends die for no good reason. I killed people who were probably decent folks just because they wore a different uniform." He took a sip of his drink. "After that, after surviving that hell, aliens showing up is just different, not scarier, just different." Dong sat with another veteran, a woman who had lost both her legs in a war 40 years ago. "How did you survive?" he asked. "Stubbornness," she said with a grin, "and good medical care, and the knowledge that giving up wasn't an option. When you're in a situation where surrender means death anyway, you might as well fight." "But the war is over now," Dong said. "You won." "Nobody won," she corrected. "We all lost friends, family, years of our lives, but we survived, and we learned. That's the best you can hope for sometimes." As they left the veteran's home, Jin spoke. Her voice carried the weight of trillions of minds. "I connected to your internet earlier today. I wanted to understand your collective consciousness." The champions looked at her. "What did you find?" Haewon asked. "Chaos," Jin said. "Billions of individual minds, each one isolated, each one unique. You have no shared consciousness, no telepathic link. You are truly alone in your own heads." And Park asked. "And yet you coordinate, you build civilizations, you go to war and make peace. You do all of this while trapped in individual consciousnesses, never truly knowing what another person thinks or feels." Jin's form shimmered. "My species shares thoughts across trillions. We know what each other thinks. But you do all of this blind, reaching out in the dark, hoping others understand you." "Yes," Park said simply. "It's horrifying," Jin whispered. "And it's magnificent. You're all so terribly alone, and yet you refuse to give up on each other." They returned to their ship that night. None of them spoke about what they had seen, but they were all thinking the same thing. They had come to judge humanity's strength. They had found something far more disturbing. They had found a species that had already survived its own worst nightmares, and that species was trying to be better. The question was no longer whether humanity would submit. The question was, what would happen if humanity decided to stop being better? 3 weeks had passed since their arrival. The champions gathered aboard their ship, parked in orbit around Mars. They had asked for privacy to deliberate, and the humans had granted it without question. Commander Park had simply said, "Take all the time you need," and left them alone. Now they sat in the ship's conference room, looking at each other in the dim light. The ultimatum they had been sent to deliver remained unspoken. They had not mentioned it once since that first day. Sung broke the silence. We need to make our report to the council. What will we tell them? Sung-Ho asked. His voice lacked its usual confidence. He had requested 3 more matches with human fighters after his loss to Master Li. He had lost all 3. The truth, Haewon said. She had filled dozens of data files with observations, tactical assessments, and strategic analysis. Humanity cannot be defeated through conventional military means. That is not accurate, Dong objected. They have weaknesses. Their technology is inferior in many ways. Their ships are slower. Their weapons have less range. You are correct, Haewon agreed. In a direct military engagement, we could destroy human forces. We could sterilize their colony worlds. We could even destroy Earth itself if we committed enough resources. She paused, letting that sink in. But we could not defeat humanity. Explain, Sung ordered. Haewon activated a holographic display. I have studied 200 years of human military history in detail. I have found a pattern. When humanity faces an existential threat, when they are pushed to the edge of extinction, they do not surrender. They adapt. She showed images from various human wars. Cities burning, populations fleeing, armies in retreat. In every case, when you think they are defeated, they change tactics. They switch to guerrilla warfare. They hide among civilians. They use terrorism. They develop new weapons. They sacrifice anything and anyone to buy time to adapt. Haewon's voice was cold and analytical, but there was something else beneath it. Respect, perhaps, or fear. During their resource wars, one faction was reduced to controlling a single city. They were surrounded by enemies who outnumbered them 20-1. Military strategists on all sides agreed they would fall within weeks. She paused. They held out for 3 years. They built weapons factories underground. They grew food in hidden vertical farms. They trained their children to fight. And when they finally lost that city, the survivors scattered and continued fighting as insurgents for another decade. They are stubborn, Na said, but stubbornness is not enough. It is not just stubbornness, one said. The ancient being had been quiet for most of their deliberations, but now he spoke with the weight of, I have lived through the rise and fall of civilizations. I have seen empires that span galaxies. I have seen species that could manipulate the fabric of spacetime itself. He looked at each of them. Humanity is different. They are not the strongest. They are not the most advanced. But they have something that most successful species lose as they mature. What? Jin asked. Desperation, one said. Most species achieve peace, stability, and prosperity, and then they stagnate. They become comfortable. Humanity achieved all those things only recently, after of struggle. They remember what it was like to fight for survival, and they have not forgotten how. Wu had been very quiet since her conversation with the human child. Now she spoke, her voice troubled. I have been thinking about what we would unleash if we attacked them. They have shown us their museums, their memorials, their banned weapons. But those weapons still exist. The knowledge to build them still exists, and we would give them a reason to use them. They would use weapons of extinction against us. Sung-Ho sounded skeptical. Against us? No, Wu said. Against themselves, if that is what it took to stop us. I read their histories carefully. Multiple times in their past, they were ready to destroy their entire world rather than let an enemy control it. They called it mutually assured destruction. They lived under that threat for decades. Madness, Dong breathed. Strategic brilliance, Haewon corrected. It worked. They never used those weapons on each other because both sides knew it would mean the end of everything. But it only works if both sides believe you are actually willing to destroy everything. And humanity was willing, Sung said slowly. Is willing, Haewon corrected. Present tense. They have not changed that much. They are trying to be better, yes. But Commander Park told us they remember how to stop holding back. The room fell silent as they contemplated what that meant. Jin spoke next, her quantum-linked consciousness carrying the weight of trillions of perspectives. I have another concern. I have studied their information networks, their internet as they call it. I have seen how they communicate, how they share ideas, how they inspire each other." And Na asked, "And they are very good at spreading ideas. If we attack them, if we make ourselves their enemies, they will unite in ways we cannot predict. They will share strategies, tactics, technologies. Every human in the galaxy will become part of their war effort, whether they are soldiers or scientists or simple civilians." Jin paused. "And they will reach out to other species. They will make alliances. They will offer technology, knowledge, resources. They will turn our own galaxy against us." Sung stood and walked to the viewport, looking down at Earth. The blue planet turned slowly beneath them, peaceful and beautiful. "So what do we recommend to the Council? That we leave humanity alone?" "No," HFY said. "We recommend that we accept humanity into the galactic community as equals. We offer them trade, cultural exchange, and full Council representation." "The Council will never accept that," Sung Ho said. "We came here to make them submit." "Then the Council is foolish," HFY snapped, "and we will tell them so." Dong shook his head. "You are all being influenced by fear. Yes, humanity is dangerous, but so are we. We could destroy them before they could fully mobilize." "Could we?" one asked quietly. "I wonder, how many human colony worlds would we have to destroy? How many ships? How many habitats? They have spread to 14 systems in 127 years. They have populations on dozens of worlds. We could kill billions of them." He paused. "And the survivors would never forget, never forgive. They would hunt us across the stars, generation after generation, until either they were extinct or we were." "There is another option," Wu said softly. They all looked at her. "We could lie," she said. "We tell the Council that humanity has agreed to follow Council guidelines. We say they will slow their expansion and ask for permission before settling new worlds. We buy time for both sides to get to know each other better." "You would deceive the Council," Noah was shocked. "I would prevent a war that would devastate both sides," Wu said. "Humanity has not actually broken any major laws. They have simply expanded quickly and ignored some requests. Given time, with proper diplomatic channels established, they would probably follow most Council rules anyway." Sung turned from the viewport. "I did not come here to lie. I came here to deliver an ultimatum and, if necessary, to demonstrate the consequences of defiance." "And now?" HFY asked. Sung was silent for a long moment. Outside the viewport, Earth continued its slow rotation. Somewhere down there, Commander Park was probably sleeping. The old veterans were telling their stories. Children were learning about the mistakes of the past. Humanity was living its life, unaware that its fate was being decided by 7 aliens in orbit. "Now I understand why they call it humanity," Sung said finally. "They named themselves after their defining quality, not their strength, not their intelligence, their humanity, the thing that makes them care about each other even after everything they have been through." He turned to face his fellow champions. "I will not recommend attacking them. I will not recommend trying to force them to submit. I will recommend that the Council opens formal diplomatic relations and treats humanity as an equal partner." "The Council will ask why we changed our position," Sung Ho said. "Then we will tell them the truth," Sung said. "We came to judge humanity's strength. We found that they are not strong because they have the best weapons or the most advanced technology. They are strong because they have already survived themselves. They climbed out of their own hell, and they are trying every day to be better than they were. That is a strength we should learn from, not try to crush." HFY began composing their official report. She wrote carefully, choosing words that would convey the truth without causing panic. She described humanity's military capabilities but also their cultural values. She noted their potential as allies and their dangerousness as enemies. She ended with a simple recommendation: extend full diplomatic recognition, welcome them as partners, learn from their resilience. As she prepared to transmit the report, Commander Park's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Champions, this is Commander Park. I wanted to let you know that our government has reviewed your initial concerns. We're prepared to establish formal diplomatic channels with the Council and discuss our expansion policies. We understand that we may have been moving a bit fast for galactic norms. Sung activated the communication link. Commander Park, this is Sung. We appreciate your willingness to negotiate. We will be recommending that the Council accepts humanity as a full member civilization. There was a pause. That's very kind of you. I think we could learn a lot from working with other species. We have a lot to offer and a lot to learn. Indeed, Sung said. Commander Park, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Did you know we would reach this conclusion? Another pause, longer this time. I hoped you would, but I wasn't sure. That's why we showed you everything. Our history, our weapons, our veterans, our children. We wanted you to understand us fully before you made your decision. Park's voice was serious now. Because if you had decided differently, if you had come here to destroy us, we would have had to show you a different side of humanity. One that none of us wanted you to see. Sung felt a chill. You were prepared for war. We're always prepared for war, Park said quietly. We just really prefer peace. The communication ended. The champions looked at each other and they all understood the truth. Humanity had not shown them everything. They had shown them enough to make the right choice, but held back the worst of what they were capable of. That restraint, that choice to offer friendship before war, was perhaps the most frightening thing of all. HFY transmitted the report. The strongest warriors the galaxy had ever assembled prepared to return home. They would tell the Council about humanity. They would recommend peace, cooperation, and friendship. And they would sleep better at night knowing that humanity had chosen to be their friend rather than their enemy. Because the strongest among them had gone to confront humanity, and they had learned a lesson they would never forget. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was not the one that could kill you the fastest. It was the one that refused to die.